I'm Michael Jones with Variety, here with Doug Triola, who was one of the co-directors of an Omar Broadway film. Talk about your other director in terms of what the film is about.
Omar Broadway, the co-director, is an inmate in a New Jersey prison system, and he came up with the idea to make this film to sort of show the abuses and harsh living in the prison system, and also to sort of show the monotony of what it's like to be in prison and how it was killing his spirit and kills other people's spirits. And I think what's interesting about it is people say, well, how could this person be a director? He's in prison, he didn't go to film school. And what I ask people to think about when they see the movie is the first scene of the movie. And I think that really, in my mind, when I saw that footage, said he is trying to be a filmmaker. Might not have all the tools, might not have all the education yet, but he is trying to be a
We'll
filmmaker.
talk about that first scene now. You can we preface it by saying he's directing this film as an inmate, meaning he has a camera in there.
Yeah, he was able to procure a camera in prison, which obviously is contraband, would not be allowed in there. The prison system wouldn't want him in, have it in there. What struck me about the footage in general is that you do see a director's point of view. It's not like your uncle or your dad shooting some Knott's Berry Farm or Roman Coliseum. I mean, there is absolutely a point of view with the footage that he shoots. In the first scene, he basically tells the story of his life and how he's going to change it. He's going to start over. And he lays on his bed 6 or 7 pictures that starts at as a child and goes all the way through he's in prison. And he scans over them. And I think most people's instinct would be, as he's telling the story, to start as a child and go to current age. He shoots it in reverse. He starts currently and goes back to birth or being a child with his mom. And I think that that's a director's choice. Some might argue, well, maybe the other way is better. I happen to think it's a great director's choice. But what's important is he's making a director's choice.
And talk about how you got a hold of this footage or how you first saw it.
I first saw the footage when a hip hop producer that we had met at Jay-Z's 4040 Club. He represented a guy named DJ Green Lantern, who was Eminem's DJ, and we went on to do some work together. And this hip hop producer, Big J Barry, called me one day. His office is in Tribeca, actually, and he said, "You got to come down here, and I got to show you something." And I said, "Well, I can't come now." He goes, "You got 1 hour. You have to get here." And I went to his office, and he was there with a guy named DJ Scoob, and they showed me one of Omar's tapes. They didn't want to let it out of their possession. Um, and I saw this incredible violence and a point of view that you don't see when you watch other prison movies or prison documentaries or prison TV shows, because it's clearly from an inmate's point of view. Not just the angle, but the way it's being shot, the things that are being said during the violence. And what struck me even more as we watched more of the tape were monologues that he was doing about himself, about prison, about his life on camera, being shot by his bunkie. And it just was something I'd never seen before. And I think that's the goal for most filmmakers, is to tell a story that you haven't seen, or at least tell a story in a way you haven't seen it. So he had this footage, but it needed to be encased in a story, and it was his story and his family story. So we started to communicate with him. One morning, it's Thanksgiving morning 2 years ago, I'm walking to the parade and I get a call from his mom, and I hear Omar's voice saying, "Hey Doug, it's Omar. Let's make this movie."
And this prison, it's like you were saying, right across the river, right next to Newark
I
Airport.
mean, one of the, again, sort of tragedies, or almost, you couldn't write it any more tragic, is that anybody who's driven from Manhattan to the Newark Airport, you have passed this prison.
You can't miss it. Yeah.
You, it looks like a scary place, but it's sort of right in between a train yard, Newark International Airport, and this highway. And it's like from the windows in that place, you can see all these people moving. From the warden's office, you can see the Empire State Building. It's a scary place. I mean, the prison tried to build itself all over New Jersey. They were trying to put it anywhere. Nobody wanted it, and the mayor at that time of Newark said, "We'll let you build it here if you hire a certain population from Newark." But what ends up happening is it becomes almost like this old Western where one brother's on this side of the law and the other brother's on this side of the law, because you have inmates and guards that went to high school together that are from the same neighborhood. And that just creates an even more stressful environment.
Right. No, it's not just Omar's footage. You actually frame it with a lot of interviews. Talk about your decision to kind of frame it in that way.
I mean, I think from a filmmaking point of view, the biggest challenge for us was how much of the footage to show and how to disperse it through it. Not to give too much up front, and to give enough where you always want to see more. Not where you're like, okay, I've seen it, I get it. So we structure it with his story, with his mom's story and his relationship to his mom and the mom's struggles on his behalf outside of that. And then as someone who just loves movies, I think one of the choices that we made that I'm happy with is that we went and interviewed other filmmakers who've worked inside the stories of prison, most notably Mark Levin, who did Slam, among other things, and Tom Fontana, the creator of Oz. And I think their assessment of prison, from the research they've done, from the things they've shot there, adds a really unique voice to the film. And I think it gives it some balance, so it's not sort of a hatchet job on the guards. I think they do give you some perspective on what it's like to be a guard in there, and also just they're storytellers, and they have great comments about the world as well as prison.
Well, the footage is incredible. It's unlike anything I think anybody has seen before. It's and it's also interesting in the fact that it's shot entirely through a door, through a barred door, and it kind of almost focuses the attention to right outside what's happening in that door, which is it's never pretty.
I think it gives it a claustrophobic feel that really, sometimes in movies, I think there's certain shots that really tell a story, and I think people remember the ones that are the most big and the most glamorous, like the Copacabana shot in Goodfellas. Everyone sort of remembers that, but it really does help tell what it's like to go to some special place and sneak in the back door and feel like a VIP. I think on the other end of the spectrum, in terms of living, being in that cell so much and how they're trying to look out and see what's going on, also gives you that sort of, it's something that helps tell their story, and I think you start to feel what it's like to be them in that.
Yeah, well, there's moments that are tragic because they're in this claustrophobic space that is so limiting, yet right outside the door it seems worse. So it's almost kind of traps them in this.
I think one of the things that the person who created the gang unit, which is where they're in, nice guy, he's absolutely trying to do the right thing. He's dedicated his life to trying to help people inside the prison system, and he says this thing which is so obvious but true, which is prison is not a nice place, and it shouldn't be. You shouldn't want to go back there. It should make you not want to go back there. I think the problems inside the prison system that we see in the film and that I've learned from working on the movie are just bigger problems, but then they're thrown into this extra tense environment of prison. They're problems that exist on the outside that are then amped up because you're putting these people in this terrible situation.
Well, Doug, thanks for coming by. It's great to talk to you.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.